I've had guns shoved in my face, knives pressed to my ribs, and more than a few men swear they'd put me in the ground before sunrise. None of that ever rattled me. Fear's a luxury most men in my line of life can't afford. But the kind of danger that comes wrapped in clean legal stationery, smooth, crisp, professionally printed, that's the kind that slithers under the door without a sound. That's the kind that tries to kill you without touching you. The morning I found that paper, the clubhouse was quiet. Too damn quiet for a place usually humming with engines and bad decisions. Rain was tapping on the tin roof, steady as a heartbeat. The boys had gone out early to handle a supply run, and I'd stayed behind to sort through the mess on my desk. I wasn't looking for trouble. Hell, trouble had already found me. The envelope sat under a pile of past due notices and a half-finished bottle of Jack. No return address, thick beige paper, government issue. That alone made the hair on my neck stand up. I slid it open with my old buck knife, the same one I'd carried since '97, the one that's seen more blood than ink. What slid out wasn't a warning. It was an execution wearing a suit, a psychiatric evaluation stamped by the county court, declaring me mentally unstable, a threat to organizational safety, and unfit to preside over any structured association, including my own brothers, my club, my damn life's work. My hands didn't shake, they never do, but I felt something inside me shift, like a mountaintop cracking before an avalanche. At the bottom of the document, sitting pretty in blue ink, was a signature I recognized from 100 newspaper articles and even more whispered conversations in back alleys, Judge Malcolm Caro. Now, Caro wasn't just any judge. He was one of those men politicians love to parade around. Tough on crime, pillar of integrity, model family man. But the underground knew better. Men who live on the edge always hear the truth before the public does. And the truth about Caro? He'd sell his soul to the highest bidder, and he'd sell yours for half. But here's the thing that froze the air around me. I'd never taken a psych eval, not once in my life. Never saw a shrink, never sat in any county office answering questions about my mental clarity. Hell, the closest I ever came to therapy was drinking in silence until the ghosts got tired of talking. So that paper, it wasn't just dirty, it was forged. And someone wasn't just trying to push me aside. They were trying to bury me under legal concrete, so thick no one would ever hear my voice again. I sat back in my chair, letting the reality settle onto my shoulders like a wet leather jacket. Declared unstable, unfit. That was more than a label. In the eyes of the law, it meant I could be removed from leadership, barred from owning property, stripped of rights. Hell, if they pushed hard enough, they could even commit me. And once I was out of the way, the club, the land, everything we'd built over the years, it'd be up for grabs. I looked around the clubhouse, the faded patches on the wall, the pool table with the bullet gouge from '09, the bar Manny built after getting out of prison the second time. This place wasn't just wood and bricks. It was sweat, blood, forgiveness, and rage bonded together with motor oil and loyalty. It was ours. It was mine. And Caro, this smug, polished bastard, thought he could take it from me with a signature. The rain grew heavier, drumming in rhythm with my pulse. I folded the paper, slid it into my jacket, and stood up slow. Every bone in my body felt carved from stone. I wasn't angry. Anger is loud and stupid. What I felt was colder, thicker, purpose. Someone had made a move against me, and not a small one. No disrespect, no bluster, no drunk idiot swinging a fist. This was war, a silent kind. The kind that ruins men from the inside out before they even know they're dying. But I wasn't dying. Not yet. Not ever on someone else's terms. If Caro really signed this, then he'd crossed a line no judge should ever cross. And if he didn't sign it, well, that meant someone forged the signature of one of the most powerful men in the county. Either way, someone out there just poked a sleeping wolf with a stick and expected to walk away unbitten. I grabbed my keys. The rain wasn't letting up, but neither was I. Time to find out who wanted me erased and how many bones I'd have to break before I got my club back. The rain didn't let up for 2 days after I found that forged report. It came down in cold, sideways sheets that turned the clubhouse lot into a swamp of mud, gravel, and cigarettes ground flat under boots. The kind of weather that keeps normal people indoors. But we weren't normal people, and I sure as hell wasn't in the mood to sit around waiting for lightning to pick a fight with me. I rode anyway. The engine of my '98 Fat Boy roared against the storm, a familiar voice cutting through the noise in my head. The forged paper sat tucked inside my inner pocket, close to my chest, like a wound I didn't want to touch but couldn't forget. Every mile I rode, I told myself the same thing. Somebody thinks they can take everything from me. And the thought burned hotter than the whiskey breath of the devil himself. My first stop was Royce. Royce knew everybody, judges, lawyers, prosecutors, and the underbelly that fed them. He was a former attorney who'd been disbarred for reasons he always described as complicated, though everyone knew it involved a mistress, some narcotics, and a district attorney who hated being outsmarted. He ran a dimly lit law office turned private bar now, where he traded information the way other men traded handshakes. I walked in, shaking rain off my jacket. Royce looked up at me over his glasses, eyes narrowing the way they do when he senses trouble. My kind of trouble, stepping through the door. "Christ, Hawk," he muttered. "You look like you've been chewing the weather and spitting it back up." "Feels about right," I said, dropping onto the stool across from him. I slid the folded paper across the counter. "Take a look." He opened it. His eyebrows hit the ceiling. "Where the hell did you get this?" "It came to me," I said, quiet-like, too quiet. Royce scanned the text, lips tightening as he read each lie printed under the guise of medical authority. When he reached Caro's signature, he stopped breathing altogether. "This is bad," he whispered. "Real bad." "I'm aware," I said, my voice flat as a rifle barrel. Royce wiped his glasses on his shirt, a nervous habit he'd never outgrown. "Caro's dirty," he said. "But this, forging mental incompetence to unseat you from a private association, that's surgical and expensive." I leaned forward. "Who would pay for it?" Royce let out a slow breath. "You want the truth?" "Always. There have been whispers that a developer's been trying to buy land all along Route 16. Your clubhouse sits right in the middle of his plotting, but the club doesn't sell." "It never will," I growled. "Exactly. So he'd need leverage, legal leverage. If he could get you declared unstable, maybe even get you committed, the state could appoint a neutral trustee to oversee club assets. That trustee could then, choose to sell." My jaw clenched so hard I felt a crack. "So Caro's in on this?" Royce hesitated. "Caro's always had two pockets, one for the law, one for whoever pays more. But forging a psych report? That's dangerous even for him." That hesitation told me everything. Royce was scared. And if a man like him, who'd spent his career dancing through fire with devils, and was scared, then Caro had friends in high places. The kind of places where names aren't spoken, only implied. I pocketed the paper again. "Who actually writes these reports? Someone had to stamp this." Royce rubbed his temples. "There's a notary on East Willow, name's Deacon Mills. Dirty as they come. Stamps anything if you pay him enough. His signature matches the one on your report." That was my next stop. But before I left, Royce grabbed my arm. "Hawk, listen to me. Don't push this too hard. Men like Caro, men backed by money you'll never see, they don't play the same game you do. They don't warn. They erase." I pulled my arm free. Then they should have done a better job the first time. East Willow smelled like mold, gasoline, and the ghosts of too many needles. The kind of place where hope goes to die quietly. Mills's office was tucked between a pawn shop missing half its letters and a deli that hadn't sold a fresh sandwich since Bush was in office. I walked in without knocking. The door creaked like it was begging to be put out of its misery. Mills sat behind a metal desk, sweat already forming along his hairline. His eyes darted to the jacket where the shape of the paper bulged. "Hawk?" he stammered. "Don't say you didn't expect me," I cut in. "You stamped something with my name on it. You should have expected me the moment you lifted your pen." He swallowed so loudly I heard it. I pulled the report out and placed it on the desk. Slowly, deliberately. "Tell me who gave you this." Mills wiped his face. I don't want trouble." "You've already got trouble. I'm here to help you decide how much." He cracked faster than I expected. Didn't even need a threat, just the promise of one. "Caro," he whispered. "Judge Caro brought it in. Told me to stamp it and backdate it. Said it was for a sensitive evaluation." I didn't ask questions. Hell, I don't ask anyone questions anymore. My heartbeat didn't speed up. It slowed, cold as winter steel. "He delivered it himself?" I asked. Mills nodded frantically. "Yes, him. No assistant, no courier. Just him. He paid cash, thick envelope, told me if I spoke of it, I'd lose more than my license." I stepped back, breathing deep. That meant Caro wasn't covering for someone else. He was involved personally, which meant this wasn't just corruption, it was intention. "Thanks," I said, turning toward the door. Is that all?" Mills squeaked. "For now." Because the truth was already carved into my bones. Caro wasn't bluffing. He wanted me gone. Mind erased, name smeared, history rewritten. And he had the guts to think he could pull it off under the cover of law. But I wasn't going to fight him in a courtroom. I'd fight him in the shadows he thought he owned. As I stepped back into the rain, helmet under my arm, I felt something unfamiliar. Clarity. Sharp, bitter, unstoppable. A storm inside a storm. Caro made this personal. Now I was going to return the favor. I didn't ride straight back to the clubhouse after leaving Mill's office. My head was wired too tight, my blood running too hot. A man in my state shouldn't be around his brothers, not because I'd hurt them, but because they'd smell the storm in me and go looking for their own lightning to strike. And this wasn't a fight I wanted them stepping into. Not yet. Not until I understood the battlefield. I rode until the edge of town disappeared in my mirrors, until the cracked sidewalks turned into dead fields and the dead fields turned into open asphalt. Out here, the only witnesses were the fence posts and the crows circling above like they expected me to fall over dead. They'd be disappointed. The forged paper felt heavier every time I touched it. Mills's words echoed on a loop in my head. Caro brought it himself. That wasn't bribery. That was involvement. A judge personally delivering a forged evaluation meant he wasn't just part of the operation, he was steering it. But motives. Motives were never simple. If Caro just wanted me gone, if he just wanted the land, he would have used zoning codes, tax liens, environmental violations, hell, any normal judge trick in the book. Instead, he'd chosen the one thing that would cut deepest. My mind, my identity, my sanity. That meant someone needed me not just removed, but discredited. Someone needed the club destabilized, somebody with money, somebody with reach, somebody who didn't know that I don't break quietly. By the time I reached the outskirts of Rust Valley, the rain had finally stopped. But the wind still carried the taste of it. The sky was bruised purple and gray, the kind of sky that feels like a warning. I parked outside the Rusted Nail, a biker bar that refused to die even when everyone who'd made it famous did. The neon sign flickered like it had arthritis. Inside, the air was thick with smoke, sweat, whiskey, and the kind of regret men drink to forget. This was neutral ground. If you wanted information without starting a war, this was the place. I stepped inside and saw Cinder, a friend of sorts, if you stretched the definition. He rode with a different crew, one I didn't have beef with, but didn't trust outright either. That's how the biker world works. Loyalty is everything, but honesty is a luxury. He spotted me immediately, hard not to with my cut and the reputation attached to it. "Hawk," he said, nodding once. "Heard the storm didn't shove you off your bike." "It tried," I said. "Didn't try hard enough." He smirked. I wasn't here for pleasantries. I slid onto the stool next to him. "I need to know something, quiet-like." His smirk faded. "You're using that voice, the one that means somebody's already bleeding and doesn't know it yet." "Maybe," I said. "Maybe not. Depends what you tell me." "Ah." Cinder leaned back. "Ask." "You heard anything about Judge Caro lately? Anything off the record? Buried? Whispered?" Cinder's eyebrows climbed his forehead. "That's not a name I expected out of you." "That's not an answer." He drummed his fingers against the bar. When Cinder fidgets, he's thinking. Hard. "Word is," he finally said, "Caro's been meeting with a developer. Some out-of-town suit. Seen them at a country club nobody admits still operates. Heard they've got plans along Route 16 and beyond. I resisted the urge to grind my teeth. Plans involving my club's land." Cinder gave me a long, slow look. "That paper they sent you? Heard about it?" My muscles stiffened. "Who told you?" "Word gets around when someone tries to take down a man like you," he said. "Rumors say someone's trying to get you declared unfit, try to pull you off the board, you piss off the wrong woman, or wrong politician." I pulled the forged document from my jacket, just enough so he could see the county seal. Cinder squinted. When he saw the signature, his eyes widened just a fraction. "Damn," he whispered. "That's Caro's name." "Is it?" I asked. He frowned. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I've seen Caro sign things before. Court records, seized property notices, dismissed charges, and his signature never looked like this." Cinder exhaled slow. "So, you think it's forged?" I know it's forged, but I also know Mills wouldn't lie about who brought it in, which means one of two things is true. Either Caro signed it under a threat, or someone signed it for him, and he's covering for them." Cinder rubbed his jaw. "You ever think Caro's being squeezed? Maybe someone's got leverage on him." "Maybe," I said. "But squeezed men don't walk into sleazy notary offices alone. They send middlemen." Caro went himself. Cinder swallowed another shot of whiskey. "You're walking into something bigger than land disputes." "Yeah," I said. "I'm starting to feel that." I left the bar as the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the pavement. Shadows always made me think of men like Caro, who hide their darkness behind bright smiles and polished shoes. I rode back into town, straight to the county building. I didn't go inside. I just watched. Caro's car, a dark gray Lincoln with plates that screamed influence, was parked in his reserved spot. I studied the car like it was a confession waiting to speak. A county clerk walked out, lighting a cigarette. Caro still inside? I asked. She nodded. He's been in and out all week. Late hours, closed door meetings. With who? She shrugged. Different people, some wearing badges, some not. That was all I needed. I waited until she flicked her cigarette and walked off. Then I pulled the forged document from my jacket and stared at the signature again. The angle, the pressure, the direction of the last stroke. I'd been reading people and their lies for decades. Paper lies, too. This wasn't Caro's handwriting, not even close. But Mills was telling the truth. Caro had brought the document in person, which meant Caro knew it was forged, and delivered it anyway, not because he wrote it, but because he needed it used. And men only risk that kind of exposure for one reason. They're desperate. Desperate men make mistakes, and desperate men break when you push just right. I folded the paper again, slid it back into my jacket, and started walking toward my bike. The cool night air filled my lungs with something sharp and electric. For the first time since this started, I wasn't confused anymore. I wasn't in the dark. I knew exactly what I needed to do. Confront Caro, not tomorrow, not with lawyers, not with paperwork. But with the truth he tried to bury. I wasn't going to shout. I wasn't going to threaten. No. What scared men like Caro most wasn't violence. It was exposure. He tried to erase me from my own life. Now I was going to peel back the curtain he hid behind and watch him crumble. I didn't sleep the night before I went to see Caro. Didn't try to. Sleep is for men who aren't being hunted on paper. Instead, I sat in the dark of the clubhouse, lights off, bottle untouched, listening to the old building breathe, wood settling, pipes ticking, wind brushing against the walls like it wanted in but knew better than to force itself. My brothers trickled in around dawn, road-weary and loud the way only bikers can be after riding supply routes through bad weather. They noticed my silence immediately. The club always does. Men like us rate each other the way wolves read tracks. Rez was the first to ask, "You good, Hawk?" I nodded once. "Got business?" He didn't push. He knew better. You don't ask a man about the storm sitting behind his eyes unless he invites you into it. By 7 a.m., I was already on my bike, headed toward the county courthouse. The sun was rising behind me, casting a pale orange glow across the blacktop. It looked like fire climbing its way out of the horizon. Fitting. Caro arrived every morning at the same time, 7:25, punctual like someone who believes the world should always wait for him. He drove the same gray Lincoln, same stubborn arrogance, same practiced smile carved onto his face like a mask someone had stapled too tight. But today, I wasn't watching from a distance. Today, I stood in his path. He stepped out of the car and froze when he saw me. I didn't say a word. I just waited, letting the silence dig into him the way he'd tried to dig into me. "Hawk," he said finally, "this is highly inappropriate." "Yeah," I said. "A lot of things are." His jaw tensed. He tried to walk past me, but I shifted, blocking him. I didn't touch him. Didn't have to. The weight of my presence alone was enough to make his polished shoes hesitate. "I have a docket to review," he said stiffly. "You have a forged document to explain." That got him. A flicker behind his eyes. Quick, almost invisible. But I'd seen it 1,000 times in men who thought they were untouchable right up until the ground started cracking under their feet. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said. I pulled the paper from my jacket and held it up. The county seal flashed in the morning sun. "Your signature," I said. "Your stamp. Your lie." He swallowed. Barely, but enough. "Hawk, you don't understand the context." "Oh, I understand it fine," I cut in. "You tried to take my club, my land, my name, without ever looking me in the eye." Caro looked around the lot, checking for witnesses. The man lived by image, by perception. The possibility of being seen alone with me terrified him more than the truth itself. "Lower your voice," he hissed. I didn't raise it. He took a step closer, whispering now. "You need to walk away from this, for your own good." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so damn stupid. "You had a chance to come after me straight," I said, "but you chose to hide behind forged medical reports. That tells me you're scared." Caro stiffened. "Nothing scares me." Or I leaned in until my voice was a ghost against his ear. "Then why'd you deliver it yourself?" He froze. Mills had been telling the truth, and Caro knew that I knew. I pulled back, watching sweat bead at the edge of his hairline. Judges aren't used to being questioned. Not by men who don't bow. "Who's paying you?" I asked. He didn't answer, so I gave him the truth he couldn't outrun. "You forged a document declaring me mentally unstable. That's fraud, conspiracy, abuse of judicial power, and I've got the notary ready to swear you delivered the paper yourself." I paused, letting the words sink iron deep. "You're not just crooked, Caro. You're sloppy." His breath stuttered. The mask cracked. And for the first time, I saw the man behind the robe. Not confident, not righteous, but desperate. Desperate men aren't dangerous because of what they'll do. They're dangerous because of what they'll risk. You don't understand, he whispered. You don't know who they are. Then tell me. Caro shook his head, eyes wide like he was staring at something far larger than me. If I talk, I'm dead. And if you don't talk, I said, your career is. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. No words came out, just fear. Then something gave inside him, a quiet collapse, the kind men feel right before they confess their sins. It wasn't just the developer, he muttered. There are investors, political donors, people who want the land for projects that can't go through official channels. Crime? I asked. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. What did they offer you? Protection, he said. Re-election money. Silence regarding past mistakes. There it was. The truth under the silk. Judge Caro, the great moral compass of the county, was owned. Not rented. Owned. And they'd sent him to erase me because I was standing on land they wanted to swallow whole. So you tried to take my life apart on paper, I said, voice steady. That's the kind of cowardice that deserves consequences. Caro flinched. He expected violence. He expected me to break his nose, break his teeth, break his future. But I wasn't here to beat him. I was here to bury him. I pulled out my phone and hit record. Caro's eyes went wild. No, don't. Tell them what you just told me, I said. All of it. He shook his head violently. I can't. Then I'll drag your lies into daylight myself, starting with this. I lifted the forged report. Once this goes public, every decision you've ever made gets re-examined. Every conviction, every deal, your whole legacy collapses. That's what happens when you try to erase a man like me. You drive yourself into the dirt you thought you could bury him in. He sagged, defeated, not by fists, by truth. He whispered something then, soft, broken. Please, don't. I'm not your executioner, Caro, I said. I'm just the man you tried to erase. I pocketed the phone, pocketed the document, turned toward my bike. Before I swung my leg over the seat, he called out, What will you do? I looked back at him, this trembling judge with a kingdom of lies collapsing around him. I'll protect what's mine, I said, and I'll leave you to fight the people you sold yourself to. He stared at me like a man who'd wandered into the wrong story and didn't know how to get out. I fired up the engine. The roar drowned out everything, his breathing, his fear, the last scraps of his dignity blowing away like ashes. As I pulled out of the lot, I felt something shift inside me. Not rage, not triumph, freedom. He tried to take my club, tried to take my sanity, tried to erase my name with ink and lies. But I walked away with the truth. And truth, when wielded right, is sharper than any blade. Caro would fall, not by my hands, but by his own. And as the wind whipped against my face, I made myself a promise. Nobody will ever try to take what's mine again, not without bleeding for it,